Sonos thinks it can pull an Apple by releasing their first pair of ANC headphones and compete with the big boys?
So let's compare it to Apple and also Bose, Sony and Sennheiser to see if that promise is truly fulfilled. Namaste DHRME, dude's headphone refund might expire.
Nice. The Sonos retails for $450. That's quite a bit of duku, as they say in Dutch.
Yeah.
But let's compare it to the only other one which costs more, the Apple AirPods Max. $550.
Yeah. Let's start with build-in design. Both have an iconic design, but AirPods is really iconic and Sonos is just good because everybody knows this shape and this design and what it means. You get 5 colors on the AirPods versus just 2 on the Sonos.
So both stick out the least from the head, but we have to say that the AirPods is slightly more premium because of those aluminium ear cups.
Yeah.
Aluminum.
Aluminium. Yeah.
Whatever.
Yeah. I'm Johnny.
We're in the Netherlands, it doesn't really matter.
So magnetic earpads for easy replacement on both. Although the earpads that we have on the AirPods have gotten a bit dirtier over time, and especially since this is the lighter color, and it's not easy to really clear it up.
No. And the same goes for the canopy on the headband. It can, especially if you get the lighter color, so keep that in mind, guys. The Sonos went with vegan leather though on the ear cups, and those will be easier to clean and maintain. And then the case situation. The case situation on the AirPods Max, yeah, the bra case of the AirPods is no match for the proper Sonos case that you get, which is a hard case, and there are magnets inside. But actually, both of them play around with magnets, right?
Yeah, the Sonos has just one magnet to keep the pod kind of in place with your cables and things.
Yeah.
But yeah, this thing uses magnets for other things, which we'll talk about in a bit.
Yeah.
And in terms of controls, I think these two have the best controls on this list. The volume control on the Max, it's just so good, it's so precise. Doesn't need gloves, no touching nonsense, you can always hit it right.
Yeah.
Very, very satisfied with that. But the volume controls on the Sonos, just as good, well, a little bit less good, but pretty good.
Yeah.
And again, no touch, and I really like it. I'm a buttanophile, so.
Nice. And for the batteryophiles out there, the battery life is advertised for 30 hours on the Sonos, and for the AirPods it's 20 hours, so quite a bit less on the AirPods.
Yeah,
and this is with ANC on, huh?
Yes, exactly. And the Sonos we tested it, we got a little bit above 30 hours, so it's nice to see that, you know, the claim holds up. It's not just something on paper.
Well, in terms of comfort, both are very comfortable. There's no real hard clamping on the ears or the crown. But one thing on the AirPods Maxes though, they are heavier, and you're gonna feel that the moment you start moving with the headphones on your head.
Yeah. And yeah, a lot of people think that the AirPods Max are not comfortable, but I think if you adjust the bands well, just like the Sonos, I think they are. Of course, they're heavier, as Kevin said, but both also generate quite a bit of heat with extended use. Although personally, I think that the mesh pads are a bit more breathable than the 4 vegan pads, but to be honest, we haven't used them for very long periods of time to really say that in hot weather, so make of that what you will.
And the way you adjust both of these headbands is with the same system, a telescopic headband. And yeah, they stay in place, and we've had the AirPods for a little while.
Yeah.
There haven't really been any issues with it, they haven't been loose or anything, so that's good.
But one thing I want to say about the headband is the AirPods...
A duck just dived and quacked, okay.
So one thing I want to say about the headbands is once you adjust the AirPods Max headband, you can put it in the bra case, it stays in place in the exact position you left it in. While with Sonos, you have to kind of, make them smaller and put them back in the case. A bit of a missed opportunity there.
And of course, you guys want to see our popsicles.
Icicles.
And test.
This is the Sonos Ace microphones in noisy conditions with cars passing by. Hop, hop, popsicle. Ice, ice, icicle. Test, test, testing. 1, 2, 3. Hop, hop, popsicle. Ice, ice, icicle. Testing. 1, 2, 3. AirPods Max in noisy conditions. Pop, pop, popsicle. Ice, ice, icicle. Test, test, testing. 1, 2, 3. Pop, pop, popsicle. Ice, ice, icicle. Test, test, testing. 1, 2, 3. Guys, mic test of the Sonos Ace in windy conditions. This is the wind speed. Pop, pop, popsicle. Ice, ice, icicle. Test, test, testing. 1, 2, 3. Popsicle. Ice, ice, icicle. Test, test, testing. 1, 2, 3. So now we have the AirPods Max in breezy and windy conditions. Very breezy. Pop, pop, popsicle. Ice, ice, icicle. Test, test, testing. 1, 2, 3. Pop, pop, popsicle. Ice, ice, icicle. Test, test, testing. 1, 2, 3. The AirPods Max, I think in noisy conditions you can hear the voice and the background sound as well, but the voice never quite dies, so you can always hear the voice. It was very impressive in wind. The voice was audible up to about 6 meters per second. That's the number you see on the scale there, even though it wasn't necessarily pleasant at that level.
Okay. Yeah, and the Sonos microphones were both good and not good. The noise suppression is great, and it did surprisingly well with wind noise up to 5 meters per second. Any stronger and the voice really suffered. However, with traffic noise, it was fine as long as Rowan would speak up. When he started speaking softly, the algorithm thought his voice was noise and just cut it off completely.
Another thing to add on the AirPods Max mic is we've experienced this with the AirPods Pro. These work best with Apple devices.
Yeah.
And you would think that the microphones, it wouldn't matter if you switch to Android. Oh, shut the up, you bird. Okay.
They actually work. Oh, no, they're bad.
Okay, the last thing I want to... Okay, oh, come on. What is this? Is this a crow? What the hell's going on?
I didn't bring my sniper, man.
Okay.
Animal cruelty, okay.
Okay. AirPods Max, one thing, I'm going to get through it without this bird getting in my way. The AirPods Max, just like the AirPods Pro, my feeling works best with an iPhone.
Yeah.
Even in mic quality terms, because the AirPods Pro, if you just connect it to an Android using Bluetooth, you get god-awful microphone quality. I'm pretty sure that has to do something with the processing on the iPhone. So keep that in mind if you are saying, you know, I want to get this and use it with an Android.
Yeah.
The mic quality isn't going to be exactly what you saw here.
Yep. And for the fuckmans out there, you will get ANC and volume adjustment on both these headphones, so you can change the ANC mode and adjust the volume. But the AirPods One ups the Sonos though, because it can actually mute the microphones as well straight from the headphones. All right, let's talk about sound, because both the Sonos and the AirPods Max come with 40mm drivers. The Sonos actually includes two cables in the box, a USB-C to USB-C and a USB-C to 3.5mm in the box, guys. Whereas on the AirPods Max, you gotta pay up.
Oh, and it was expensive, right? We bought the Lightning to 3.5. I think it was like 30 euros.
Something,
it's
yeah.
bizarre.
Yeah. And don't forget, right, the AirPods Max still has the Lightning port. So yeah, for your charging cable situation, that's gonna be a thing to think about. And on the Sonos, you do get aptX lossless, but that's only if your Android phone supports it.
I ain't looking at the clock, still ballin' like Brian. Yeah, I'm headed to the Bucks, then I'm ballin' like yeah. I ain't looking at the clock, still ballin' like Brian. Yeah, I'm headed to the Bucks, then I'm ballin' like yeah.
And now I'm going to rant a bit about the Sonos because this is the first headphones we're comparing it to, and that applies to all the other comparisons as well. But the Sonos has this problem where it has a loudness slider in the app, and that really messes the sound up completely. You can see the graphs on screen here. And the thing is, it comes on by default out of the box with that loudness slider on. So it just sounds bad and bloated and over bassy. When I turned it off, the tuning was much, much better. And in terms of customization, you only have two sliders in the Sonos app for sound. That is a bass and a treble slider. Not great for customization. Sonos also supports lossless on iPhone, but that is with the cable. So that is not wireless. So keep that in mind. But does lossless matter? Because purely on stock tuning, we definitely prefer the bass of the AirPods Max. The downside on the AirPods Max is there is absolutely no customization for sound. So you have those 3 headphone accommodation settings in iPhones, but that kind of applies to all your headphones, I think. So it's not even like a custom EQ or whatever.
No.
And purely in terms of sound, I think I slightly prefer the Sonos for the mids and the highs, and the AirPods for the bass. So it's kind of like a mixed bag, and of course you get all that spatial audio magic in both, but yeah, I'm not sure if that's something I enjoy particularly. Maybe for movies, for music, it makes zero sense for me. And I would say both of these are fine for wireless headphones for sound. If I was just going for sound, maybe I would choose the Sonos because there's a bit more of tweaking I can do there.
And then there's some extra features that we should talk about. Both of these can be connected to two devices at the same time, and they can both pull connection from a previously paired device.
Yeah, but there is no device list in the app for either of these headphones.
Yeah. Now, there's a big caveat to the multi-point situation on the AirPods Max because that only applies if you're using it with, you guessed it, Apple devices. So you get all that seamless switching and everything, but yeah.
It wasn't very seamless, right?
No, it has
Some
a
seams.
couple of yeah, exactly. It has a couple of seams. And then talking about the Sonos app, right? Ron already talked about a bit. There's the EQ, you get ANC controls, you get spatial audio, and the Sonos speaker integration. You want to talk about that integration a little bit?
Yes, so I don't have a Sonos speaker, so I don't have it. Yeah.
Cool, moving on.
Yeah.
Well, basically in a nutshell, you can hand over the audio coming from your Sonos speaker set to your headphones and back to it. That's basically it.
We're still on extra, so I want to talk about the Sonos app. Now, there have been a lot of complaints about the Sonos app online around the time of the release of the headphones, and we think they rushed out the release of the app just because the headphones were coming out. Here's a little preview of a guy I met on the street and what he thinks about the Sonos app.
It's not working.
No.
They've recently updated the app and it's, well, you know, quite horrible to say the least. It's just very unstable, let's put it that way. I opened the Sonos app at home while watching TV, for instance, and my phone wasn't detecting the audio sound. And then it said, okay, you can't recognize the pin sound. And it took 30 seconds. My wife and kids had to go outside and the moment I pressed it, the app crashed in a couple of seconds. So it finally worked. But then the second issue came up, Spotify in my living room, and I had to change to TV, basically, right? And now if you open the app, it's like a Spotify homepage. It goes back on, and then normally the TV kind of recaptures, sends to the Sonos back to TV. And yeah, by that time, it's just very frustrating.
So there you have it, guys. It's not just us who has Sonos app problems.
And let's talk about the app on the AirPods.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's no app. So it's all about integration into the Apple's control center on your devices. So yeah, no app if you even dare to pair it with a non-Apple device.
Yeah.
Don't you dare.
Don't you dare.
Timmy will find you. Okay.
Timmy!
Damn it. So how does the noise cancelling do on both these headphones? Well, have a listen for yourself.
Yeah, now the recordings are recordings, and I hope they help you get an idea. They're not going to be the same as listening to these in a 3D space, so keep that in mind. Don't believe people promising that that's exactly how it sounds like when you wear them. Now, in terms of just ANC, I think both are very good, right? Like the AirPods Max is still God level for me. It's like one of the best noise cancelling headphones for cancelling noise.
First product, huh?
Yeah, and it's the first product. I would put it in tier S. We would put it in tier S. That's our highest tier for noise cancelling. But the Sonos is a solid, like, you know, top of tier A, or, you know, a bit of maybe end of tier S. I think I've put it somewhere there. So it's not the top of the top, but if, you know, like ultimate noise cancelling is not your goal, I think they do plenty fine. So the AirPods Max transparency, how do they do? Listen to it for yourself.
All right, welcome back. So for transparency, we slotted the Sonos in at tier S, but that's the same tier the AirPods Max is in. Both are amazing, guys. It's just like almost like you're wearing nothing at all. Headphones. You're not wearing headphones. Still wearing clothes. Just get that straight.
Not that transparent.
Family-friendly show here. All right. We will say that the AirPods Max, the higher end was more emphasized. So stuff like the clicking of a mouse will get more amplified to you.
But the Sonos Ace, by far one of the best transparency modes I've ever seen.
Yeah. I would dare wear this in transparency and go out cycling, walking, whatever.
We did that just now, right? You were walking and you were...
And I was totally aware in a busy city, so no issues.
Yeah.
But talking about issues, well, the AirPods Max has been known for this condensation issue. So there have been little water droplets forming underneath the magnetic air pads.
Yeah.
Not sure what kind of effect that could have on the device itself. But that's something we've noticed with long-term testing. But after a little bit of Googling, we realized that the Sonos is actually facing the same or similar kind of issue. Not sure if that's a magnetic earpad thing, but yeah, it's there as well. We'll have to see if it really does cause any issues in the long term.
Yeah, and speaking of long term, the AirPods Max, these are, how old are these now? 2 years old?
Longer.
Yeah, longer. So
Three.
we have some data to show how these perform over time, and I must say the headband looks really bad right now.
Saggy.
Very flimsy. Look, it's not torn. I thought they would tear at some point, but that's not happened. The ear cups look filthy. On the white ear cup, and of course you can buy new ones and replace them, but those are the things you're going to have to take into account when buying the AirPods Max.
And you had like a mosquito issue or not?
So the mosquito issue on the Sonos is a bit of a problem because you hear the slight radio interference sound, and initially I thought it happens with phone calls, it happens with transparency mode. It is especially highlighted in transparency mode.
Okay.
But when I was in the quiet studio, just listening to it, I could still hear it. So that's quite annoying for a very expensive product to have this radio interference. I think they've not done the shielding well or something. And we are not the only ones experiencing this. We've seen this online as well.
Okay. And coming to our pick, which one would we choose between the AirPods Max and the Sonos Ace? So, simply put, Sonos. Unless you're really deep in the Apple garden. Even though Sonos comes in at tier A for ANC, instead of tier S on the AirPods Max for ANC, we think that's fine.
Yeah.
They're still very, very good, and they're very close to tier S as it is.
And it's got multi-point, that's the thing you're going to miss on the AirPods Max. You're not going to be able to customize this on Android using an app. We said the mics are objectively worse. You just get full multi-point on these. Android, Windows, iPhone, it does not matter. So for us, that's important because we live in many ecosystems. Now, both have great controls, and objectively, I think the AirPods Max is better in terms of transparency, controls, microphones, but it's very, very limiting, and that special Apple sauce makes it quite unpalatable.
Yeah. Things like the lightning port, right? Still very outdated. There's no multi-point if you don't use Apple devices. And that out-of-the-box bra case, yeah, that was some very much out-of-the-box thinking of Apple.
Yeah.
And let's not forget the hefty price tag, right? $100 more than these boys right here.
So our pick, the Sonos Ace over the AirPods Max for the reasons we just said.
All right, next up, the Sonos Ace versus the Bose QC Ultra, which retails at $430.
All right, let's go to another place.
So, build and design of both these headphones, guys. So Bose is actually the only foldable product on this list. So the case is visibly smaller than, for example, the Sonos, but yeah, any other case except the bra case of the AirPods. But yeah, is that really a case? Anyway, in terms of looks, we've got to give it to the Sonos, guys. It just looks more premium, looks nicer.
Yeah.
With the metal and all of that, this is primarily a plastic build. They don't look bad, but if we had to pick between the two, Sonos takes it for the looks.
Now, let's talk about controls because, look, I've not used the Bose as long as you have, right? You've used it a bit longer than me. I think Sonos has, as we said, one of the best controls on this list, barring the AirPods Max. I like the Bose controls. I used to love the fact that they had buttons, but because it's Ultra, they decided to do something Ultra and, add a volume swipe thing. But I've heard mixed reviews on that, and my personal view is like, don't use touch if you don't need to. When it's cold and I have gloves on, it works, it doesn't work. What is your view on the touch slider thing on the Bose?
Annoying, right? Because you can't really do that fine grain of volume adjustment, which is annoying. So it's always a bit of a, guessing and hoping that you get the right volume level, right? So yeah, not a fan.
Yeah.
Not a really ultra move,
Yes.
in our opinion.
Yeah, if they just stuck to buttons, I would prefer the Bose because the buttons on the Bose are a bit tighter and clickier, whereas the Sonos buttons feel very like there's a soft press and is like a bit less tactile than the Bose, but Sonos for the controls.
Yeah. Then the juice situation. So both of these headphones obviously come with ANC, and with ANC, the Sonos is advertised at 30 hours. We tested it, got 31 hours. The Bose is advertised at 24 hours, but we tested it and got 30 hours. So if you look at the testing numbers, they're very much on par.
Yeah, but both are fine, right? 30 hours, you basically, if you're using it a couple of hours a day, you don't have to worry about charging it.
And no lightning port.
No lightning port.
USB-C.
Oh yeah.
Okay.
C for comfort.
Nice.
Okay, now both are comfortable. I think, I got bird poop on my hands.
Oh God.
Disgusting. Comfort. Now, both are really comfortable, I think. How did you feel that your pinne rested inside the ears?
Nice. Yeah, there was much more space as well, but so was the Bose.
Yeah.
Right, so it's very comparable.
And I think because the Bose is a bit lighter, it's made of plastic, it feels a bit more comfortable.
Yeah.
But this is in no way uncomfortable, and yeah, that's what it is. Phone calls, we have to talk about phone calls. But before we talk about phone calls, why don't you look at his icicles
And his popsicles.
and my tests. This is the Sonos Ace microphones in noisy conditions with cars passing by. Hop, hop, hopsicle, ice, ice, icicle, test, test, testing, 1, 2, 3. Hop, hop, hopsicle, ice, ice, icicle, testing, 1, 2, 3. So we have the Bose Quiet Comfort Ultra in noisy conditions as cars pass by. Hop, hop, hopsicle, ice, ice, icicle, test, test, testing, 1, 2, 3. Hop, hop, hopsicle, ice, ice, icicle, test, test, testing, 1, 2, 3. That was the Bose Quiet Comfort Ultra in noisy conditions. Guys, mic test of the Sonos Ace in windy conditions. This is the wind speed. Hop, hop, hopsicle, ice, ice, icicle, test, test, testing, 1, 2, 3. Hop, hop, hopsicle, ice, ice, icicle, test, test, testing, 1, 2, 3. So now we have the Bose Quiet Comfort Ultra in breezy conditions. Let's get the wind meter out. Here is the wind meter. Test, test, test. Ice, ice, icicle. Test, test, testing. 1, 2, 3. So that was the Bose Quiet Comfort Ultra in very blustery conditions. I'm wondering if it survived.
In noisy situations, guys, the Bose, you could hear a lot of the cars whooshing by in the background, but the voice was audible, albeit a bit processed sounding. And the voice is totally gone with the wind though. So if the wind is not as strong, then you're audible, but will sound like you're in a hollow room. Definitely not our favorite in outdoor phone situations.
Yeah, and that's the case also in real life use. These are just some tests that you saw, but that's what everybody says when they use those headphones in noisy situations.
Yeah.
The Sonos, again, we talked about it before. The bottom line is it does really well with sound, but it's a bit too aggressive and it cuts out your voice as well.
Yeah. And then for Fachmann controls, the Sonos has a volume and ANC. Bose has that too, but it one-ups it with mute as well.
Fuck, man. The sound here is pretty loud, but why don't you take a listen to the sound of these headphones recorded on gear to record headphones. Smooth! That's
Nailed it.
I ain't looking at the clock, still ballin' like Brian. Yeah, I'm headed to the Bucks, then I'm ballin' like yeah. I ain't looking at the clock, still ballin' like Brian. Yeah, I'm headed to the Bucks, then I'm ballin' like yeah.
So on the Sonos, like we said, you get two cables, Type-C to Type-C, Type-C to 3.5 millimeters. On the Bose, you also get Type-C to Type-C, but you get a 2.5 millimeter to a 3.5 millimeter analog cable. So both support aptX lossless, but that's only if your Android phone supports it. And the Bose has a 3-band customization versus a bass and treble slider on the Sonos.
Yeah. and both have way too much bass out of the box, especially with that loudness thing I talked about. But I think the quality of the Bose bass is much better. It definitely has better control, whereas the Sonos felt a bit less, there's less of a attack and a longer decay on the bass. Again, I found that turning off the loudness slider makes the tuning on the Ace much more palatable, whereas with the Bose, I must admit I did have a harder time getting more control over the sound, even though it has 3 bands. So that's something to keep in mind. The mids are a bit more present on the Bose, which makes vocals more audible, although sometimes a bit nasal sounding because of how it's tuned. Bose does not support audio over USB-C. I was wrong, it does not. But on balance, if you're just talking about sound, despite the huge bass, I prefer the Bose. And sure, both of these have spatial audio.
Whoa. Then let's talk about a couple of extra features. Both have multi-point and both can pull connection from a previously paired device. But the Bose here has a device list in the app, which the Sonos does not. Then the Sonos app, like we said, EQ, ANC, spatial audio, the Sonos speaker integration, all of that. The Bose's app is actually more feature rich. It has that device list we talked about, but there's actually a button that you can use, the pairing button. And if you press that, it can actually cycle through your paired device list. Pretty cool, not something that we've seen before.
And another thing that the Bose can do with ANC is you can set up ANC profiles, which is actually very handy. If you're out in the wind a lot, we have a commute setting which kind of cuts down the wind noise. Really nice.
Then for the active noise cancelling, have a listen.
Again, we said tier A for Sonos, but the Bose is god level at tier S. We also dislike that Sonos ANC mics are on the underside, so here. So especially when I was wearing jackets, right, it kind of rubbed out against them, just like the AirPods Max, one thing we didn't talk about there. And it has this loud, irritating sound, which kind of gets amplified because of the ANC mics.
And how does the transparency sound? Well, here you go. So tier S on the Sonos, guys, and tier S on the Bose too. So they're similar in terms of the tier we put them in, but we slightly prefer the Bose just on the clarity of the noises that get piped in transparency mode.
All right, let's talk about the issues that these two headphones have.
Yeah.
Now, the Bose app has been a nightmare on the earbuds. On the headphones, it's a bit better, but there's still some app reconnecting issues, and sometimes it just acts a bit weird. On the Sonos also, I had that initially with my Android phone, but it seems to have resolved over time, and now I don't have issues. I use it with many phones, and it seems to be working fine. But of course, that mosquito in your right ear all the time on the Sonos, and it gets worse on transparency. So our pick would be...
It really depends on the price, guys.
Thanks.
Because the Bose is objectively slightly better on ANC, transparency, the comfort, the overall size because it can fold up, and the sound. But the Sonos, and that's our opinion, really has better controls. Also, the mics are better, and there's that Sonos integration if you have the whole speakers situation at home.
Yeah, and the bottom line is that the Sonos isn't much worse than the Bose. I think they're kind of in the same league almost. So it does come down to price. So if this is slightly cheaper than the Bose, I would go for the Bose, but if it was much cheaper, I would go for the Sonos. But then again, one thing about the Sonos, which we've not talked about, is it's a first generation device. So we don't know what problems are up ahead, whereas the Bose has been out for a while and you kind of know what you're getting.
I mean, they invented ANC, so.
Yeah, so.
Okay. But again, the price, right now, the retail price is quite similar. Actually, there's not a huge difference.
Yeah.
But again, prices, they change, especially after release. So check out the links in the description for the latest prices.
And check out our comparison with the Sony WH-1000XM5 coming up next. All right, I was supposed to bring the Sony WH-1000 XM5. I forgot them at home, so enjoy the other B-roll.
Yes.
Anyway.
Okay, let's kick things off with the build and design, guys. So the Sony doesn't look very generic in our opinion, but in terms of looks, the Sonos still takes the win. It's much more classier looking. It has more premium materials because the Sonos uses metal in their build, whereas Sony is mostly plastic.
Yeah.
Kind of all plastic. But the advantage of the Sony there is that it's super lightweight and you really do feel that. We'll get to that in the comfort part. Now, oil.
Oil. I'm the oil expert.
Yes, please.
I forgot to get my oil hoodie, but check the merch out in the link. I think both are oil magnets, but Sony is much worse in this regard. Like, let's do a live example with the Sonos. I'm oily right now. Oops, sorry. Yeah, it actually does a pretty good job of avoiding oils compared to the Sony. Like, and they've done some work on this. They've used materials that they say repel oils and stuff like that. Yeah, okay, he's not satisfied, but if you like oils, you will be. What is better on the Sony is touch controls, because the Sonos doesn't have touch controls, but overall we still prefer the control scheme on the Sonos. But I must say, out of all the touch controls I've used, Bose and Sony are some of the best. So if you really want touch controls, yeah, those things are there.
Bose and Sony are some of the best?
Yeah, okay. Out of all the controls I've used, yeah. Okay. There have been some really terrible ones as well.
Yeah.
We'll come to one
in a bit.
So yeah, the buttons have a softer press on the Sonos. The Sonys are more clicky, so the buttons I prefer the Sony, but the volume control on the Sonos, the swiping, the what is that, the volume rocker kind of thing that moves, it's really nice. Let's talk about the case, because although the Sonos case is kind of hard, the Sony case,
you want to see it?
It's kind of soft. And look,
right here.
That's this hard black
the hard case.
Case that he pulled out. But the Sony case is okay, and it can really compress, and it can be completely flat. That's how it comes in the box. But I think in terms of protection, I think the Sonos case might be a bit better.
Yeah. The battery life with ANC on both these headphones are very similar, guys. Both are advertised at 30 hours. In our tests, Sonos got 31, the Sony got 32. So again, on balance, excellent headphones for battery life.
Now, comfort. We have a bit of a disagreement here. I find the Sony really, really comfortable. And yes, it does not really, my ears don't rest inside and you kind of touch the drivers a bit. But on the Sonos, that does not happen. So it's very Bose-like in that sense. So if you enjoy the Bose comfort, I'm guessing you would also enjoy the Sony comfort. The Sonos comfort, Sony and Sonos. What do you think about the Sony comfort?
Yeah, so like I said, because they're super lightweight, they're initially very nice, but with longer term use, I felt it around my ears. Not in terms of just heat, but also just it pressing around my ears. So Sony is definitely not known for the ear cup's depth and size. Yeah, that's what he said. So on both these headphones, you really do not feel it on the crown. It's very pleasant, at least for us. So where I would pick the Sonos is just because of the comfort with the ear cups. But you didn't face that issue. So again, we're built differently.
Yes.
Even though we might look very similar.
So let's talk about phone calls. But before you listen to the phone calls, let's listen to some popsicles, icicles, and this is the Sonos Ace microphones in noisy conditions with cars passing by. Hop, hop, popsicle, ice, ice, icicle, test, test, testing, 1, 2, 3. Hop, hop, popsicle, ice, ice, icicle, testing, 1, 2, 3. All right, the Sony WH-1000 XM5 in noisy conditions. Pop, pop, popsicle, ice, ice, icicle, test, test, testing, 1, 2, 3. Pop, pop, popsicle, ice, 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 icicle, test, test, testing, 1, 2, 3. Guys, mic test of the Sonos Ace in windy conditions. This is the wind speed. Pop, pop, popsicle, ice, ice, icicle, test, test, testing, 1, 2, 3. Pop, pop, popsicle, ice, ice, icicle, test, test, testing, 1, 2, 3. All right, the Sony WH-1000 XM5 in very breezy conditions. Pop, pop, popsicle, ice, ice, icicle, test, test, testing, 1, 2, 3. Pop, pop, popsicle. Ice, ice, icicle. Test, test, testing. 1, 2, 3. Pop, pop, popsicle. Ice, ice, icicle. Test, test, testing. 1, 2, 3. The Sony WH-1000XM4, till that point, Sony had some of the worst microphones for phone calls. We had the MDR-1000X, the XM2, the XM3, the XM4. Yes, we've been doing this for a long time. And when the XM5 came out, we were shocked. I was like, I did not believe this was true. It took us 1 week to really digest. Oh, the mics are really that good.
Test it again.
We tested it again. We went, we shot some shots outside, etc. So the Sony is, for me, the standard bearer when it comes to microphones on ANC headphones. It's able to balance the noise as well as wind, as well as voice very well. So incredible.
And then for the Fuckman, the Sonos and the Sony have the same controls. You can change volume and you can change the ANC mode. That's it, no mute.
And let's talk about sound.
I ain't looking at the clock, still ballin' like Brian. Yeah, I'm headed to the Bucks, then I'm ballin' like yeah. I ain't looking at the clock, still ballin' like Brian. Yeah, I'm headed to the Bucks, then I'm ballin' like yeah.
The Sony has a 3.5 to 3.5 millimeter headphone jack. Does not do audio over USB Type-C, so Sonos has a definite advantage there. You can charge and listen to music at the same time, and lossless in some cases. But the Sony sound for me is way more natural, and it's just, we had an audiophile friend visit us recently, where we had a couple of drinks, and guess which headphones he was carrying on the airplane? Yes, it was a Sony WH-1000XM5. You know who you are. Yes, leave a comment down below. And yes, Sony's, not only is Sony more natural sounding, it has a way better customization with a 5-band EQ, a clear bass slider, and
That's all nice, man, but the Sonos has spatial audio head tracking.
you know, Sony has actually been doing head tracking way longer. Well, 360 audio way longer than all of these other guys. But yes, Sonos has head tracking, so yeah.
Whoop-de-doo.
Whoop-de-doo.
All right, the extras. So there's multi-point support on both of these, and both of them can pull connection from a previously paired device. The Sony does one-up the Sonos though, because it has a device list in the app and you can disconnect and connect from there. We talked about the Sonos app and you probably thought, oh wow, there's a lot of features in the app. Well, you ain't seen nothing yet. The Sony is the epitome of what we call feature vomit. Now, what they're doing is with every release, they're just adding integration to some third-party service.
Yes.
You know what it is? I think they're getting nervous. They're getting nervous that there's a lot of competition in the market and they're just adding stuff. They're like, hey, we got this and we got this and this one. And
I think they're
Yeah.
making money.
Yeah.
I think when they add an integration,
Yeah.
that Spotify pays them, someone else pays them.
There's a lot of
whatever.
Sonys, right, that we spot out in the wild.
Yeah.
So,
So I guess they found a way to make money off their headphones.
yeah. ANC, listen to some samples, guys.
Sony is tier S, we say, like kind of the bottom of tier S. Sonos, we say, is the top of tier A. So we would say the Sony is better than the Sonos. Again, not a world-changing difference.
Yeah. Of course, like we said, there's a lot of ANC feature vomit for the Sony, but things like, you know, it can change based on the location, based on your movement. It can adjust the ANC level and the transparency mode, etc. We don't use all of that, but it's there if you want it. The Sony also gives you a bunch of slider adjustments and adaptive noise control. But again, let's be honest, who's really using this feature? And again, let us know in the comments if you do, because we'd be very curious to know.
Yeah. And the good thing that Sony does have, which it doesn't really tout, is it has automatic wind reduction
Yep.
in the ANC mode. It's not great with wind and transparency, which is what you prefer. I just want to shut out the world and listen to it on ANC. But yes, of course, in terms of some situations where you want to be safe, you definitely want to have transparency on, and there's a lot of wind. It ain't that great. Yeah.
Super dangerous, man.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. I'm still here, right?
With bird shit.
Yeah, bird shit is good for you.
right.
Hashtag bird shit.
And then for transparency, have a listen and we'll see you back.
Now, tier S for Sonos and Sony.
Used to be tier A, now it is tier B, guys. We had to bump it down. The transparency clarity was just not great. So this is a clear win for the Sonos.
So we had some issues with the sound, but we do have issues with both of these headphones as well. On the Sonos, we've talked about it. On the Sony, there's a few more.
Yep. So the headband hasn't been really known to be great. Not only on the XM5, right?
XM4, XM3,
right.
XM2.
All of them have had some sort of issue. Just go on Reddit and you'll find a bunch of people complaining about it. But this time we actually faced it.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, ours didn't break as such, so we can still use it.
Yeah.
But the left headband, you know, the telescoping thing, it just doesn't lock. So I leave it and it just falls out like this B-roll shows you. So that's annoying. Another annoying thing on the Sony is it has excellent ANC, except when it doesn't, because it has automatic AI, ANC switching. So if it detects there's some sound in the environment, it just switches it down to a lower setting, and there's nothing, with all that feature vomit in the app, they have, you know, not given us the option to disable this feature. So thank you, Sony.
Yeah, we have a case of the AI as well. ANC irritability.
Oh my God,
you
did you
go.
just come up with that?
That's why I looked like I was thinking. You thought, yeah.
Man, that was awful.
I'm done for today.
Okay,
There you
yes.
go.
We're not yet done.
Oh,
We
okay.
have the Sennheiser Momentum 4 coming up compared to the Sonos.
Yeah, but before we go there, we're going to tell you what our pick is between the Sonos and the Sony.
That's right. Yeah. You were leaving, so I thought we just
Right.
rush through it. But
Well, the Sony definitely has a lot of the things going for it, right? It has much better price point. They're much more lighter in terms of weight. And the ANC is better, and it's got great sound going for it. But we could not agree on what the pick would be.
my pick is different from your pick. Your pick is there, right?
Yeah,
Show them your
here
pick.
it is.
Yeah. He picks the Sonos. Why is that?
Yeah, the reason I pick it is comfort. Like I said, I just couldn't wear the Sony for very long periods of time. And the Sonos just has much more room for my big ass ears. And I like that the transparency mode is a lot clearer, which I value because I'm quite often in transparency mode when I'm working at home or even out and about. So yeah.
Yeah, and for me the transparency doesn't matter so much. The microphone quality blows Sonos out of the water.
True.
Sound is better, so I prefer the Sony, and let's be honest, the Sony is much more often discounted than the Sonos, at least right now. So check out the links in the description again for the latest prices. If both prices were same, I would pick the Sony.
Yeah.
But in general, the prices on the Sony are much lower, so that makes it a bit of an easier call for many people.
Yeah.
Now can we move to the Sennheiser?
Fine, let's do it.
Yeah, what the hell?
Sennheiser Momentum 4.
It's time. The momentum has arrived.
Yep.
Let's talk about the build and the design.
The Sennheiser has insane battery life, guys. 50 plus hours, but it's advertised at 60. Okay, but still probably the one on this list with the most amount of battery life.
Yeah.
Looks-wise, the Momentum 4 do look stylish. Not as stylish as the M3s though, in our opinion. But between the two, which one would you pick?
I don't know. Why don't you guys take a look and let us know?
I like the fabric headband though.
Yeah, right?
Yeah,
It's so
that's
much
a nice
classier.
touch. Yeah.
And yeah, I also like this kind of little shape they have. It makes it unique, the shape
Yeah.
of the cup. So overall, well designed.
Yeah.
Sennheiser knows how to design
Exactly.
headphones.
And in terms of
My God. The touch controls, I would say, like, the Sennheiser is pretty good, okay? Let's not get it wrong. We have much cheaper ones, which you've seen, which are terrible. But on this list, I think these are probably the least best touch controls. They also have some weird-ass touch controls, like pinching in and out to increase your ANC or transparency level, which I actually appreciate.
Really?
Yeah, I like it, but I think many people, for most normal people, it's not something.
Hey, I'm
they're
just gonna say it.
enjoy.
I'm just gonna say it here.
Yeah.
Bring back the dials.
Yeah.
Yeah, the Surface headphones dials were amazing. Okay,
Yeah.
this is off topic, but
Yeah.
I just had to say it.
I understand. I don't know why nobody else is doing that.
I don't know.
We had Surface and we had Bang & Olufsen that did it, and nobody else.
No.
So yeah,
Okay.
it is what it is.
Anyway, moving on. Let's talk about the comfort.
Yeah.
Okay.
Now,
So
for me, personally, I don't know if you use the Momentum 4 a lot.
Not as much as
not
you
as
did.
much as I
Yeah.
do. So I did not complain about the cup size and the pressure on the XM5, but on the Momentum 4, I do really think it's quite a comfort issue for me, because the ear cups aren't very big, and also when they press down, it kind of hurts behind my ear, which I kind of don't have with almost any other headphones. So that's actually the main reason I don't use the Momentum Force compared to all the other headphones on this list. And when you have glasses on, because of the shape of these headphones, they really kind of press down on the glasses. Now, okay, it's playing audio, but whatever. Yeah, I didn't have this issue with most other headphones, so.
All right, it is time to look at our popsicles.
Icicles.
And test.
This is the Sonos Ace microphones in noisy conditions with cars passing by. Hop, hop, hopsicle. Ice, ice, icicle. Test, test, testing. 1, 2, 3. Hop, hop, hopsicle. Ice, ice, icicle. Testing. 1, 2, 3. And now the Sennheiser Momentum 4 in noisy conditions with cars passing by. Here we go. Pop, pop, popsicle. Ice, ice, icicle. Test, test, testing. 1, 2, 3. Pop, pop, popsicle. Ice, ice, icicle. Test, test, testing. 1, 2, 3. Guys, mic test of the Sonos Ace in windy conditions. This is the wind speed. Pop, pop, popsicle. Ice, ice, icicle. Test, test, testing. 1, 2, 3. Pop, pop, popsicle. Ice, ice, icicle. Test, test, testing. 1, 2, 3. Sennheiser Momentum 4 in breezy conditions. Pop, pop, popsicle. Ice, ice, icicle. Test, test, testing. 1, 2, 3. Pop, pop, popsicle. Ice, ice, icicle. Test, test, testing. 1, 2, 3. So again, this is the Sennheiser Momentum 4 in breezy conditions.
So in the samples, guys, you could hear the cars on the Sennheiser, but you could also hear Rowan speaking. So there was no crazy environmental noise cancellation going on. So it sounds very much like you're there with the person, right? You hear everything. And on the bike, you did hear the wind, but the voice didn't disappear. So in light to medium wind, it held its own. But of course, with stronger gusts of wind, it did suppress the voice, which is expected.
Yeah.
That's hard to do.
Yeah, and the Fuckman is plenty satisfied with the Sennheiser because not only do you get volume, ANC controls while you're on a call on the headphones, you can also mute the headphones, and there's an adjustable side tone slider in the app to hear your own voice clearly.
Wow, probably the headphones with the most amount of Fuckman controls.
Yeah.
Because the Sonos only gives you ANC and volume. That's it.
Yeah.
Okay. Sound. Call me.
I mean,
It's all you.
if you just blindly read on the internet, people just say, yes, Sennheiser, best sound. Is that true? Well, in this case, it is. For me, Momentum is clearly the better pick for sound. It even has features like sound check, where it kind of customizes the sound to your ear. It has the whole Qualcomm suite of codecs, just like the Sonos. Now, the Momentum 4 sounds way bassier than the Sonos, but there's a huge difference. We said even this sounds bassier with loudness on, but this is way more tasteful, and that's something that doesn't come across in the frequency response graph. It probably does because it's more sub-bass and that's more mid-bass, but along with Sony, this is the only other set of headphones here to have a 5-band EQ. You get audio over USB Type-C, you get audio over 3.5mm headphones, and while the bass is definitely overdone, unlike the Sonos, this sounds better and the voices and instruments are clearer.
I ain't looking at the clock, still ballin' like Bra. Yeah, I'm headed to the Bucks, then I'm ballin' like yeah. I ain't looking at the clock, still ballin' like Bra. Yeah, I'm headed to the Bucks, then I'm ballin' like yeah.
When we're talking about extra features, actually they're all related to sound again on the Sennheiser. You get those sound personalization features that Rowan talked about, you get high-res tuning, there are even sound zones that you can configure. There are wear sensors, but there's wear sensors on all of the headphones, right?
Yes.
Okay.
So we didn't say that, but all of these headphones are wear sensors done.
There you go. And there's also audio over Type-C if that's what you want. Again, ANC, listen to some samples, guys, and we'll see you in a bit. For ANC, the Sennheiser would come in at tier B, the Sonos at tier A. Clear winner is the Sonos, but there is more adjustability and a wind noise setting in the app for the Sennheiser though. Okay, that was ANC, but how did they perform on transparency mode? Well, here you go.
We said tier S for Sonos. It's probably one of the best transparency on this list. Sennheiser is also tier S, but there's a big caveat there. There's a bunch of white noise on the Sennheiser, so you hear this shh kind of sound throughout. And for this reason, we prefer the Sonos. So even though we put Sennheiser in tier S, we put it at the bottom of tier S for this reason. And if I had to choose between the two, actually I would pick the Sonos for sure. Okay. But what would you pick between the two?
Yeah, we'd pick the Sonos because...
You would pick the Sonos.
Oh, okay. You're not picking the Sonos?
No, he would pick the Sonos.
Okay, okay. So we do agree on that one.
Yeah.
We both pick the Sonos just because of the comfort, the ANC and transparency, they're all better. But if sound is really, really important to you, definitely go for the Sennheiser.
Yeah, I think after the Sony on this list,
Yeah.
I would just, it would be the Sennheiser. If you're just looking at sound, those two are the ones to consider.
Yeah.
And the Sennheiser does tend to get discounted much more heavily.
So that's something both the Sony and the Sennheiser also have in common.
But also a huge thanks to our patrons and YouTube members for supporting us. A special shout out goes to our Fakman tier peeps, Paula and Gamma Panda. Thank you very, very much.
You've been enjoying the beautiful city of Utrecht.
And we've been DHRME.
Doei.
Doei.